Well, let's keep moving along and we'll talk about how we build and integrate this thing. We want to build a system that doesn't lose data. That's robust. It doesn't lose it. It doesn't missort it. It's one of the reasons we use databases instead of Excel. If you want to lose something, just put it in Excel. And one of these days, somebody's going to missort it and now we got a problem. It doesn't lose data. We want to have backups that are snapshots, and we don't want to write over the backups. If we take a backup every week and keep putting it in the same place, then we'll figure out we had a problem 3 weeks ago and we're out of luck. So we want to have a decent backup strategy. And we need to have a disaster planning worst case scenario. What if the email goes down at UMKC right before the SBDC situation? What do we do? Right, Andy?
That's right.
Yes, that can happen.
Yeah.
Yes. So, location storage, where our backups are, where our fulfillment could happen. How do we reload the data? One of the problems with getting too specialized in systems is that if your system crashes, there's no specialized system to reload the data on. You have to start all over again. So robustness, not losing data, is really critical. Some systems have to be separate. First of all is risk, separate hosting. Like Andy and I, we have multiple emails. We got around you, UMKC, in case something goes wrong. Data has different meaning in different places, and sometimes we have to keep things separate. So we say things and mean different things. So if we say risk to an insurance company, they say, aha, opportunity. If we say risk to a bank, they say, oh, we can't do that. So we want to be careful. And lots of things like that happen in business and language and the way we do things, where we've got inconsistent definitions and separate missions, which leads us into culture. Sometimes cultures just don't mesh. Even something like customer service and sales. Sales is like it's hunting. You're trying to go out there and get something accomplished and closed. Service, you're kind of placate it and make it okay. It's not quite the same experience dealing with a problem. So those are different groups, different parameters, and sometimes we need to keep those separated for emotional and logical reasons. And when we're talking about our systems, if you can't do it manually, you can't automate it, period. You got to figure out, what is it supposed to do? Who's benefiting? What does it cost? How do we value it? And can we do it manually? How should it work? How does it work? Who manages? And then who's in charge of the process? Because you probably already found that in situations where people aren't sure who's managing something, you can bet they're going to just stop. So you want to be careful as to who has responsibility. Does it make sense to them who's doing it? And if you can't explain it to a programmer, if you can't do it manually and you can't explain it to a programmer, they probably don't understand it. And you may have figured out by now that people who are programmers are not business people necessarily. They are not necessarily entrepreneurs. They're very interested in making a system that works the same way every time. And when you come along and want changes, that can be a challenge, both technically and culturally. So remember, if you can't do it manually, you can't automate it. You can't line the process out to a programmer and explain the manual process. Promise you they don't get it. Okay. Now, cloud or local for processing and storage. Well, what do I mean by that? Are you going to have a system inside your walls? So your computer with your hard drives or add-on hard drives doing the actual work, or is it going to be externally hosted? An example of externally hosted would be something like Salesforce.com is externally hosted. Your Facebook site is externally hosted. Or a mix of both. And by a mix of both, I mean you might do things locally with your own, let's say, cash register system, and you have everything backed up in the cloud, and you have some way to access things remotely so that when you're not there, it still works. Of course, the problem is If the thing goes down or has to be reset, somebody may have to physically go to it. Generally speaking, local is faster and more secure. Doesn't have to have internet all the time, at least, and you have better control. So if you have the in-house skills to do that, that can be a good thing. Cloud is easier to change in size and scope. Things are stored remotely and backed up remotely, so you can't lose them due to a tornado, fire, flood, civil insurrection, or whatever else. And you can reach it from anywhere, which is good and bad, but mostly good. You can operate your business from anywhere. And of course, the hybrid, we can back things up to the cloud. We can have local processing for certain things and not others. We can dial in and deal with things from a distance, which is how most support is done now these days anyway. So we have a little time for a group discussion about why it's important to have robust web processes, why it's important to assimilate this. By assimilate, I mean make the physical realm and the online realm, 2 plus 2 equals 5, which it should be. Generally speaking, as you add more options of ways to do business with you, that alone should grow your business. Your existing customers should do more business with you as a result of having more options. You should find more customers. And what do you think about cloud-based or local? What's been your experience and thoughts on that one?
So this is Heather.
Okay.
Sorry. My business is completely based, is cloud-based. My web processes essentially have to come off as flawless. So one process that I keep up with is I take what I think is an obnoxious amount of classes on Zoom. So that way I can ensure that I can help people who have never or hardly used a computer on how to use it. So that's part of my process. I also train on a computer software system that has quite a few flaws. It's not mine, it's someone else's that we must use. So I stay up to date with that. But my entire business is cloud-based. And because of these different softwares that I got to choose the Zoom, but I didn't get to choose the software system that I have to use.
Okay.
But I take a lot of classes on that. And I mess around in it a lot too. So that's mine.
Okay. Yeah, I think where that's practical, that makes the most sense. I think that unless you have some kind of a critical mass in a location and some kind of critical skill set, like if you're operating a cash register system in a local business and you have the on-the-ground IT support, you can make it work for a while. Makes sense if it's a specialized business, but even then, cash register system can be cloud-based. Stephanie?
Yes, mine is cloud-based as well.
Okay.
It's kind of similar to like you just said with the POS. It's all accessible from mobile devices, computer. It's just pretty much a login.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, and then depending on your vendor, that sets some limitations as to what you can do to integrate. I've been working with some jewelry retailers lately. And they have a system where it's rather amazing to me. The whole system, it's a cloud-based system, and it's all designed for inventory tracking. And I can't tie up the customer with the order and the address. Like they can't, oh, wow. It's like, that's an interesting problem when you want to reach your customers.